What's going on, everybody? My name is Sean Game, and I'm honestly really pumped to share my country specialist project on Cuba. I'd like you guys to picture this before we jump in. A sunny Caribbean island full of colorful streets, full of lively music, and a history that's honestly really wild. Cuba's got this incredible mix of old school vibes and modern challenges, and I can't wait to walk you all through it. We're going to be covering a lot. We're going to dive into its history, how its economy and its politics work, and the amazing diversity of its people. Some tough issues it's facing, and, of course, its awesome culture. I've been learning so much about Cuba recently doing my research, and I hope you'll find it just as enjoyable and as cool as I have. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this adventure. And to kick things off, I'd like to travel way back in the past to see how Cuba's history got started and shaped everything that we know today. So, Cuba's story really starts way back in the late 1400s when Christopher Columbus landed and Spain was managed to take it over. They landed and saw this island and thought, wow, this is perfect for growing sugar, apparently. But here's the tough part: they built that sugar empire using enslaved Africans, which set up a system where Spanish settlers were at the top and everyone else was pushed down to the bottom. But fast forwarding to 1902, Cuba finally broke free from Spain after the Spanish American War, which is pretty dramatic, right? But the US kind of hung around, influencing things for a while. But then in 1959, when the Cuban Revolution happened, which was led by this guy named Fidel Castro, who said something like, "No more dictators in my area." That revolution totally flipped Cuba into the socialist country that we know today. It's wild to think how those moments still echo in Cuba. And speaking of that revolution, it didn't just change Cuba's past, it completely set up how the country's still run today. And I'd like to check that out. Specifically, its politics and its economy. Okay, so Cuba's got a socialist system where the Communist Party's been in charge since Castro's revolution. It's like one group making all the big decisions, which is super different from what we're used to in America. But on the economic side of things, Cuba makes money by exporting a lot of goods, stuff like tobacco. Think those famous Cuban cigars everyone talks about. Sugar and nickel are also very apparent, which is used in things like batteries, for instance. But it's not all smooth sailing in Cuba. They've got this thing called a dual currency system, where the Cuban peso is worth way less than the US dollar, and it makes buying and selling stuff a major headache. And I also read that inflation's been crazy high lately, like 700% since 2021, which is hard to even imagine considering our currency here. And it's honestly tough for regular Cubans because these issues mean less money for things like food or clothes or just daily necessities that we'd go out and buy. And it really shows how tricky it is to keep the economy going in a place like this. But considering all that, I'd like to jump into what really makes Cuba special, which is its people and their incredible diversity. And Cuba's really like this amazing smoothie of culture, simply put, which is blended from Afro Americans, Europeans, and indigenous people. And it's pretty cool how they all come together to create this thing called Cubnavidad, which basically the heart and soul of being Cuban. And you see it everywhere. It's in their festivals, like the Carnival in Havana, where everybody's dancing and celebrating. But here's the real talk: Afro Cubans, who bring so much to their culture, sometimes get the short end of the stick. And even though the law says everyone's equal, they might not get the same shot at jobs in tourism or other big industries. Still, Cubans are super proud of their mixed heritage. And I mean, can you imagine a place where every street feels like a party because of all these different people? Well, I mean, that's Cuba for you. And that cultural pride is pretty awesome, but Cuba's also got some serious challenges right now. So I'd like to shift gears and look at what's going on, really. And right now, Cuba's going through some really heavy stuff. A ton of people, over 500,000 since 2021, as reported by my research, are actually leaving the country and heading to other places with more opportunity, like the US, for better jobs and also for more freedom. And it's honestly kind of heartbreaking because it's often young, talented people who feel like they have no choice. They're born into it. And why? Well, I mean, the economy's a mess. There's shortages of basic foods and medicines. And I mean, that dual currency system that I mentioned, it's making everything way more expensive than it needs to be. Talk about a 700% inflation rate with a 5 times the price on a candy bar. It's a little rough. But even adding in US sanctions, and you've got blackouts and crazy inflation. And the people there are frustrated, and I mean, you can see it in the protests. Like the ones in 2021 where Cubans were out in the streets asking for change. It's like the whole country's at a crossroad, and they're trying to figure out what the next move should be while the government holds tight to their control. But I mean, even with all that going on, Cuba's culture still manages to stay incredibly vibrant, and especially its music and dance, which I'd like to dive into next. And if you've ever heard of salsa music, you felt Cuba's heartbeat before. Salsa is this incredible mix of African rhythms like rumba and Spanish melodies, and it's literally everywhere in Cuba. And I swear the first time I heard a salsa beat, it did make me dance. And it's pretty infectious. Afro Cuban culture is a huge part of it, and bringing in the drums and dance moves that make every performance electric. You know, you have legends like Celia Cruz, who's called the apparent queen of salsa, who took the music global, but in Cuba it's just part of their daily life. And I mean, every time you go anywhere in Cuba, you'll see people dancing at festivals or even just in the bare street, showing off their Cuban pride. And I mean, it doesn't just seem like it's only fun, it's how Cubans stay connected to their roots and traditions and manage to smile through all these tough times. And while this is such a diverse region with a lot of things to talk about, there'd be no time to discuss this, every single thing about Cuba today. But on that note, wrapping up, I just want to share where I got this info and to give you a final thought on Cuba's story. And so putting this presentation together was like going on a treasure hunt, really. And I dug into a lot of things. I dug into academic journals about Cuba, and I found a couple books that explored Cuba's history, starting from its colonial days up to its revolution. And all my sources are super reliable, but if you're curious, you can take a look for yourself in my references at the end of this presentation. And I honestly had a blast learning about Cuba. I mean, they had a really rich culture, and it was super fun to see just how vibrant they are. And, I hope after hearing this presentation, you're just as fascinated with Cuba as I am. But, okay, with all else being said, I like to just bring everything all together with a little quick recap of Cuba's journey and what exactly it means. But, Cuba's story has been a roller coaster of ups and downs for them. From the Spanish colonies to that game changing 1959 revolution, where Fidel Castro was able to conquer their thriving dictatorship at the time. And it's almost a place that's faced so many challenges, economic struggles, people leaving. I mean, you can name it. But somehow it just manages to stay in spirit. The diversity of its people and that unbeatable culture, like salsa dancing in the streets, make Cuba a very special place. And I mean, how many places can say they've got that kind of energy? And all else being said, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to my presentation. And it's been pretty fun sharing this with you and doing all this research. But don't forget to hop on the discussion board and answer 3 questions I posted. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys think about it. Thank you.